He said, that's it. We got it. He said, Marty, we're going to die in the heat. He said, die then. It'll keep your weight down. This is perfect.
The story of the most iconic image in Irish folk music does not begin in a fashion house or a branding meeting, but in the biting cold of a New York City winter. The year was 1961, and the metropolis was in the grip of one of the most severe winters recorded in decades. For the Clancy Brothers, Paddy, Tom and Liam, and Tommy Makem, life in Greenwich Village was a far cry from the pastoral, albeit hard life of Ireland. They were working actors and struggling musicians, navigating the concrete canyons of Manhattan, where the chill of the Hudson River could cut through the thin coats of impoverished artists. The winter of 1960 to 61 was particularly brutal, characterized by heavy snowfalls and plummeting temperatures that paralyzed parts of the city. The band members were living the quintessential bohemian life, often short on funds and lacking the heavy winter gear required for such extremes. It was this climatic necessity that set the stage for a fashion revolution. By accident, the sweaters were not purchased as costumes, they were acquired as a survival gear. The pivotal moment in the creation of the Clancy look arrived in the form of a cardboard box from Carrick in County Tipperary. Mrs. Johanna Clancy had heard reports of severe weather facing her sons across the Atlantic. Motivated by her Irish mammy instinct rather than marketing manager, she procured 4 heavy hand-knitted Aran sweaters and shipped them off to New York.
Those sweaters, how did that come to pass? That was a...
My mother felt sorry for us. She got 3 sweaters made to send us out as a Christmas present to her sons so that they wouldn't get their cold. And then she thought, oh sure, poor Tommy Makem is going to be cold as well. So she got a 4th one made.
Liam Clancy in later interviews would vividly recall the experience of opening that box. The sweaters had a distinct, pungent aroma, the smell of the turf fires that burned in the hearts of Irish homes. Because the wool was often kept near the fire during the long hours of knitting, and because the natural oils in the wool absorbed smoke, the garments arrived in New York smelling unmistakably of rural Ireland. In the sterile, gasoline-fumed air of New York City, the scent of peat smoke was a powerful, visceral link to their origins. I'm going to take a quick little side note here and share a recent personal experience from just the other day. I was going on a walk with my wife and son. It was nice and quiet, fresh winter air. I heard loads of loud engines approaching. It was a line of old Japanese sports cars, Nissan Skylines, fair ladies. I absolutely love old Japanese cars, right? So I got my son up and we watched them drive by. It was impressive. They looked cool. They sounded cool. But Jesus Christ, the smell was horrific. Petrol, old oil, whatever it was. You could even smell the ice caps melting. It made me think, is this seriously what cities overcrowded with cars smelled like back then? I don't know, let me know if you remember. But anyway, try and keep that image, that olfactory image, if that's what you call it. You know what I mean. Contrast the smell of the 1,000 cars and whatever else have you in New York with the opening of this box. If it didn't make them homesick straight away, I don't know what would. It grounded the lads in their identity before they even put the sweaters on. The sweaters were thick, creamy white or baunine, and heavy with lanolin. The lanolin was the oil. They were tactile, alive with the texture of the animal and the hand of the maker, contrasting sharply with the machine-finished textiles common in American department stores. We have to have a look at the band's previous failures in visual branding. Before the sweater era, we'll call it, the group struggled to define a cohesive stage presence. A telling anecdote of this involves their first major engagement outside of New York, at the Gate of Horn Club in Chicago. Anxious to appear all professional and showbiz ready, the group decided to dress in a manner they thought appropriate for rising stars. They donned their tweed jackets and crisp-dressed shirts and ties, an outfit that mimicked the respectable, buttoned-up look of mainstream entertainers. The result was a disaster. The audience, expecting the raw, rebellious energy of Irish ballads, found that the attire just did not match with the music. I don't know about you, but I just cannot imagine them any other way. Let me know your thoughts about it down in the comments if you think the same. But Liam Clancy recounted that they were ridiculed for looking stiff and uncomfortable. resembling uncomfortable bankers rather than folk troubadours. The ridicule they faced at the Gate of Horn was a turning point. It created a vacuum in their visual identity that needed to be filled by something authentic. The transition from winter wear to stage costume occurred at the Blue Angel, a sophisticated uptown nightclub in Manhattan. The band had not planned to wear the sweaters on stage. They had worn them to the club simply to brave the freezing temperatures outside. They were effectively wearing their coats, but here enters Marty Ehrlichman. Ehrlichman was the band's manager, a man with a sharp eye for branding, who would later go on to manage global superstars like Barbra Streisand. He had been searching desperately for a hook, a visual signature that would make this group of 4 Irishmen stand out in a crowded and competitive New York folk scene. When he walked into the dressing room and saw the 4 men clad in the matching, bulky, cream-coloured wool sweaters sent by Mrs. Clancy, he experienced a moment of revelation. That's it, that's what you're going to wear," Ehrlichman famously exclaimed.
Their manager saw something else in the sweaters. A signature look.
He said, "That's it. We got it. He said, "Marty, we're going to die in the heat." He said, "Die then. It'll keep your weight down. This is perfect."
The band members were baffled. To them, these were functional domestic sweaters, essentially, heavy work gear, not tuxedos or stage suits. They protested, arguing that the sweaters were too hot, too rough, and uncool. I think they're pretty cool, to be honest. Ehrlichman, however, overruled them. He recognised the visual power of the garments. They were uniform without being uniform. They were bright, textured, and unmistakably distinct. He issued a decree that they were to wear the sweaters for their upcoming high-profile appearance. It was a marketing decision born of an accident, transforming a mother's gift into a professional uniform. It is important to note the initial reluctance of the band. In the context of 1961, the Aran sweater was not yet a fashion icon. It was the clothing of labourers. For the Clancy Brothers trying to make it in the glitzy world of American show business, wearing homespun wool felt like a step backwards, a return to the poverty they'd tried to leave behind. They wanted to look like stars, which in their minds meant suits. But Ehrlichman saw what they could not, that their star quality lay in their difference, their roughness, and their authenticity. The sweaters communicated this instantly. They were not dressing up as someone else. For the first time, they were visually amplifying who they actually were. So what is an Aran jumper? The Aran jumper was an exotic artifact to the American eye in the 1960s, a piece of old world craft that carried with it centuries of maritime history and a fair bit of mythology. The Aran jumper takes its name from the Aran Islands, a trio of rocky, wind-swept islands located at the mouth of Galway Bay on the west coast of Ireland. The islands, Inishmore, Inishman and Inishere, are defined by their harsh elemental environment. The Atlantic Ocean batters the coastline, and the land is a maze of limestone rock and stone walls. Historically, the islanders subsisted on farming small plots of man-made soil and fishing in currachs, lightweight canvas-covered boats. The Aran sweater was evolved to meet the specific demands of this environment. It was not designed for leisure or for singing on stage. The fishermen required clothing that provided maximum insulation against the biting wind and protected from the constant spray of the sea. The impact of this visual and musical attitude on the young Bob Dylan can't be overstated as well. Bob Dylan arrived in New York in January 1961, right when the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem were establishing their sweater-clad dominance.
Well, I'd never heard those kind of songs before, although I close up, I'd heard them on records. Brennan on the Moor or Roddy McCorley or these people, I wasn't aware of them when they existed, but it was as if they just existed yesterday. The first album I made, there was one song on it that it was an old song I'd heard on an old banjo record someplace, but I did that song the way the Clancy Brothers, I thought, would have done it, in their style. For me, I never heard a singer as good as Liam ever. He was just the best ballad singer I'd ever heard in my life. It still is, probably. I don't think I can think of anybody who's a better ballad singer than Liam.
While Bob Dylan didn't adopt the Aran sweater himself, he adopted the ethos it represented, the rejection of the polished commercial suit look in favour of something that looked lived in and working class. The Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem proved that you could be successful without looking like a banker or a frat boy, and Bob Dylan's later aesthetic shares a lineage with the Clancy's rejection of the tuxedo. A practical aspect of the sweater's success was their visibility. In 1961, television was overwhelmingly black and white. Under the harsh studio lights of TV stages or smoky club spotlights, the cream or the baunine wool reflected light brilliantly. It made the band members pop against the dark backgrounds typical of television sets, while other bands blended into the grey scale with dark suits or medium-toned shirts. The lads were bright, textured beacons. Marty Ehrlichman's instinct was correct. Once you saw the guys in the white sweaters, the image was burned into your retina, and this is probably why I just cannot imagine them in anything else. It was a masterstroke of unintended visual branding. If the Blue Angel gig was the dress rehearsal, the Ed Sullivan Show was the global launch. The adoption of the Aran sweater by the Clancy Brothers didn't just change their career, it fundamentally altered the textile economy of Ireland. The date was March 12, 1961. The venue was the Ed Sullivan Show, the absolute pinnacle of American television entertainment, beaming into living rooms from coast to coast. The Clancy Brothers were not supposed to be the stars of the show. They were a support act. However, the headlining act, Pearl Bailey, fell ill or cancelled at the last minute. In a panic, the producers asked if the Clancy Brothers, Tommy Makem, if they could fill the time. Instead of doing one or two songs, they performed for a staggering 16 to 18 minutes.
By the rising of the moon, by the rising of the moon, for the pikes must be together by the rising of the moon.
They sang live to an audience of approximately 80 million people. Before they went on, Ehrlichman enforced the sweater rule. They walked out onto the most famous stage in America wearing the sweaters sent from Tipperary. The reaction was instantaneous. The American public was captivated not just by the music, but by how they looked. Reports from the time and subsequent economic analysis indicate that sales of Aran sweaters rose by 700% following the broadcast. The image of the Irishman in his cable knit sweater became an overnight sensation. The demand was so violent that it overwhelmed the traditional production methods. The tiny population of the Aran Islands, numbering in the hundreds, could not possibly knit enough sweaters to clothe America. To meet the demand, the industry had to expand rapidly to the mainland. Women across rural Ireland and Donegal, Galway and Tipperary were recruited into a massive cottage industry network. They were sent wool and patterns, often standardised to ensure the Aran look remained consistent, and paid to knit for the export market. The Clancy Brothers had effectively turned a local craft into a national manufacturing engine. The success of the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem coincided with a push by the Irish Export Board to modernise and market Irish products. The lads became wittingly or unwittingly the greatest ambassadors for Irish wool. To sell to American department stores, the sweaters needed to be standardised in sizing and quality. This led to the introduction of quality controls and instructional guides for knitters, moving the craft away from the idiosyncratic family patterns towards a recognisable commercial product. By the mid-1960s, the Aran sweater was no longer just for fishermen or folk singers. While the Clancys gave the sweater its masculine folk credibility, they were part of a wider wave that brought the Aran sweaters into fashion. Around the same time, icons like Steve McQueen and Grace Kelly were photographed wearing Aran sweaters. Grace Kelly, who is Princess Grace of Monaco, appeared on the cover of Vogue and was photographed sailing in an Aran sweater, giving it a stamp of royal and high fashion approval. The Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem provided the authentic roots of the garment, while the movie stars provided the glamour. Together, they ensured that the Aran sweater became one of the few garments that could be worn by a fisherman, a folk singer, and a movie star with equal validity. The Clancy Effect was the bridge that carried the sweater from the firelit cottages of the west of Ireland to the bright lights of Broadway and Hollywood. The story of the Clancy Brothers and their Aran jumpers is a testament to the power of the accidental icon. It began with an Irish mammies worrying about their kids in New York with a big freeze on the way, and it ended up a global fashion phenomenon. The box from home containing those peat-scented sweaters did more than just keep the boys warm. Through a combination of Marty Ehrlichman's branding genius, the massive reach of the Ed Sullivan Show, and the inherent beauty of the Aran sweater's craft, the sweaters became a symbol of Irish identity that transcended the music. So thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please hit that like button before you go, and subscribe as well if you don't want to miss any future videos. Also let me know what you thought about this down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it all. Do you have an authentic Aran jumper yourself? I honestly would have loved to have worn one for recording this video, but I think the heat stroke would catch up to me. I have enough insulating as it is, and if you're interested in buying some Irish music themed bits and pieces, please check out the shop. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You can show your love for Irish music and support the channel at the same time. It really helps me out and I can continue making videos like this. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to our channel members. Here's your names up on screen. Thanks again as always for your continued support in helping make these videos possible. If you'd like to join them, please hit that join button down below, or check out the links in the description for more info. It's just another way that you can support the channel just a little bit more than subscribing, and so we can keep these videos coming. The Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem popularised Roddy McCorley. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about the story behind that song, please check out this video. It went from one of the first songs that I've ever learned to being literally one of the most interesting stories I've ever researched. I'm sure you'll enjoy it too. But anyway, that's it from me. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Slán go fóill. Cheers.